Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're having a good day, a good morning, good afternoon, or whenever you're seeing this video. I'm about to show you a couple videos of America, and let you listen in on this video, and I'll get back with my commentary. Um, but
into these sundown towns and was slain or killed or massacred or lynched. How many years have the cry been going up to the Most High? How long has he given these Appalachian areas time to repent? How long has he given them time to change their evil and their wicked laws? To get unrighteous police officers out of the police department instead of always protecting them, knowing that they do great harm to black people when we go through their neighborhoods. So now we're not supposed to say nothing, but Yah hears our cries. And now that Yah's hearing our cries, they want us to stop crying. That's why they're doing this. They want us to stop crying out. As it says, because the cry, can you read that?
Yes, Cain. Because the cry of Sodom and Amorah is great, and because their sin is very grievous.
I will
down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is coming to me, and if not, I will know.
So the heathen want us to stop crying out. That's why they're making videos like this. They want us to stop crying out. They want us to stop mentioning the Most High's name. They want us to stop saying the word sundown towns. They don't even want that word to be in our vocabulary. Because the more we cry out about these things, the faster and the more their judgments start to come. So Florida has created what? No critical race theory. You can't even talk about what they do. They're making it illegal in the state of Florida to even mention the atrocities that they have done to our people. So now Yah has visited Florida too. Let's see.
Mm-hmm. Can I while you pulling that up, would you mind if I wanted to read just a few of the grievances to Yah?
Absolutely.
I wanted to so people know that we're not making this up. This is not hate. This is not hate speech. Florida, Rosewood Massacre, 1923.
Oh, I see it.
Massacre, 1920.
Let me Let me pull this up on the Christopher Goins. Thank you so much for the cash app. Let me put this on the screen so that people can see what you're reading, because I want them to hear, but I also want them to see. Let's see. This Twyla B. Thank you, Veronica Brown. God bless you and thank you. Man, let me forward this.
See, these are our cries, and we've been crying for a long time.
Okay, I have this. I want to make this bigger. Can y'all see that so people can see this?
You need to open it up and what is it? Option?
Tronly?
No. See if it gives you to open it up, maybe like in a PDF or something.
It wasn't allowing me to do that. Let's see. Let me try it this way.
What is it? Is it a note?
Man, give me a second, family. Let me see if I can open this up.
Yeah. Is it a note?
Okay, here we go. Can y'all see that? Can move down
Yeah.
out the way. Go ahead.
Gang. See, this is where Milton and Helen hit. Rosewood Massacre. These are our cries up to Yah. Rosewood Massacre, 1923. Ocoee Massacre, 1920. Axe Handle Saturday, 1960. Tampa Riots, 1967. Groveland 4, 1949. Newberry 6 lynching, 1916. Perry Race Riot, 1922. Tampa lynching of Robert Johnson, 1918. Lynching of Celia and Marshall Williams, 1912. Orlando Race Riots, 1919.
But this woman just said that we all Americans, right? Well, I don't see her type of American getting lynched. And look at this. This is unbelievable. Derek Yasharal, Yah bless you.
Stop.
is a proven way to scale your land clearing or forestry mulching company to new heights. Stick with me for the next 90 seconds and I'll show you how. Listen, if you're an established land clearing or forestry mulching company looking to...
This other issue I want to bring up is a problem too. Why are black men being lectured to?
Sorry about that. But yeah, people just don't get it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this broadcast, I'm going to be sharing with you not the actual video, but a screenshot so that you can go and take a look at the video yourself. It's a video that I took the time to look at earlier today. Now, you are going to have to read the caption because they're speaking in another language, but the caption translates it for you. The video talks about how our walk with the Most High had better tighten up really, really fast. This guy is going to be sharing his testimony about a vision where the Most High took him to see hell and what was going on there, right? There's also a warning about ancestors. There's a lot of folk that seem to be praying to ancestors today. Your ancestors are dead. They no longer exist in this realm, and they are not answering your prayers. But unfortunately, a lot of our people are getting into the ancestor worship. That's a very dangerous practice, and I'm seeing it more and more. A lot of people don't realize even the darkness that's behind that. There was a woman who started the business, and I'm not going to even name the business. She has since sold it to a major corporation for, I believe, millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, or even over $1 billion. But she made a lot of money on it, right? Quite a bit. But her claim to fame was that her ancestors, she prayed to her ancestors. Now, I'm not telling you this so you can be tempted to do this. I'm telling you this as a warning, okay? A lot of people, they think about the right now earthly gratification from doing something outside of the will of the Most High, from doing something that is wicked, that have been spoken and proven to be wicked, okay? And so don't get tempted to do this with me sharing this testimony. The woman has already shared her own testimony. We've spoken about it before, years ago. But a lot of people are tapping into ancestor worship and praying to ancestors, not really understanding what they are doing. You are actually in contact with demons, right? Because your ancestors are dead. They no longer exist in this realm. You are tapping into a demonic power that is essentially guiding you on the path of destruction. And so when a person gets connected to some type of financial reward for doing something spiritually dangerous, they don't want to associate it with anything that's wicked. They don't want to associate it with wickedness because they're like, how could something so good for my life, such as wealth, fame, and notoriety, how could that be connected to something evil? See, people don't want to understand the truth. See, the devil does things too. That's what folk don't understand. The devil does things too. And so just because some people have this testimony that they've acquired some type of fame or fortune or notoriety after praying to their ancestors doesn't mean that it is the right thing to do. We have been instructed and prohibited from doing that. It is definitely a very diabolical, demonic practice. So the video that I want you all to take a look at, it's a man, an old senior black man who has an affliction on his body. And if you take the time to read the caption, it is worth it. Okay, it is worth it. He's explaining the affliction. He's explaining the vision that he saw. He's explaining what the Most High told him concerning his affliction, right? But some of the things I want you to pay attention to This is why it's titled, I'm going to show you the caption on the screen here. Here's the video. It says the ancestors don't exist, right? And this man, this is his name, Makulu Radabis, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he talks about his visit in hell and what the Most High revealed to him and why it's so very important that his people repent of their sins. There's some very key things that he said in his testimony as well. I want you to see them for yourselves. If you want to make note of some things that jumped out at you in the comment section, that is awesome. There were a few things that I'm not going to really get into right now, about...
This is also one to point out there too. You had anything that happened in the realm of justice, righteousness in the land, is going to be through the Most High, not through the ancestors. And it's going to be vengeance on this country. It's not because of the ancestors. It's because of what is the balance of justice that's in this land. That's the reason why. And a lot of black people thinking that praying to the ancestors, there's a segment of people out there, not all, some, but there's some that does this. They don't want to give credit to the Most High through his son Yeshua HaMashiach. So they try to go to another deity. And you see here people like Umar Johnson giving Ogun and all these other people. No, this is what she's talking about.
The Most High's people and, even the world in general. I want to see if you all can ears, your spiritual eyes, and your spiritual ears. We are surrounded by darkness in this world. Father, we believe, but help our unbelief. 10-2.
Okay, I guess she didn't. Alrighty then. Let me see. But this, I'm gonna get back to this.
Room for the whole family. Safety Plus. The Mazda CX-90. Discover more at the Mazda Somerset.
Trigger warning. The following program is meant for both white and black audiences, and every other color imaginable.
It's 1870. The Civil War and its bloody liberation is still a fresh memory. The embers of the Confederation are smoldering in the South. The nation is more divided than ever. And years after emancipation, the African American community is beginning to thrive. Hiram Rebels, born free, family established in the Americas long before the Revolution. He was a preacher, an educator, who planted schools for black children across the U.S. But on February 15th, 1870, rebels would make history. Spectators packed the galleries and burst into applause as Hiram Rebels entered the chamber to take his oath as the first African-American senator in U.S. history.
Rebels wasn't alone. He was a part of a wave of 2,000 black men elected to public office across the South. A wave that would soon be crushed. The Civil War had exposed an insidious code in America's DNA, a blueprint of power and control, labor and division.
For some hidden history, this code didn't just create laws. It created an entire race of people.
The first time
It created
on planet
the
Earth,
greed, the division,
there is a
and the
reference to a
privilege
group of
that
humanity.
has always ruled America. This is the story of America's black codes.
Somebody told a lie one day.
The lies told in our history books.
A group of families dared to cross a mighty ocean to build a future for themselves in a new world.
The first permanent English settlement in the Americas was done by a corporation.
America began with corporations, plantations, and cheap labor. Remember that.
A Virginia Company of London was established in 1607, and they were commissioned by King James himself. There was no Mayflower, there was no religious freedom seekers. Their mission was to find gold and loot the Indians. They didn't find the gold that they were searching for. What they did find was a business model that would endure in the Americas from its inception to present day. The
The plantation system in the United States. Cheap labor, one crop, and vast tracts of land.
Slavery wasn't institutionalized in the colonies in the early 1600s, but they still desperately needed a labor force. And the English, they grabbed the poor, the vagrants, the criminals, and they shipped them off to the New World, along with the Irish, the Polish, and a small but growing number of Africans, all into indentured servitude contracts. And if you don't know what an indentured servant is,
Indentured servants were generally white people coming from Europe.
I might not survive it. That master, he can do with me what he wants. I don't work hard enough, he can beat me. If he doesn't like the way I work, he can sell me.
After nearly a decade, the king gave permission for the English Governor General to collect and sell the captured Irish soldiers as slaves and send them to the New World in the Americas.
now the people of the servant class, they were all equals. Generally speaking, they were built to benefit the elites of Jamestown and its shareholders, corporations, plantations, and cheap labor.
Free men of African descent could own servants or slaves, and they did. They could vote, and they did. They could marry persons of the opposite sex regardless of national origin, and they did.
1621. A young man is running for his life off the shores of West African Angola. He's eventually captured, overpowered, and subdued. Life as he knows it is snatched away from him right at that moment. His family, his friends, religion, vocation is all left behind. A vacancy in Africa.
This man would come to be known as Anthony Johnson, now an indentured servant for the Virginia Company of London, but soon to be the patriarch of the first community of wealthy black property owners in America.
When he arrived at the tobacco plantation, all of the people working alongside him were of a lighter complexion. They were European, English, Irish, Polish, and they all worked side by side with each other as indentured servants in the tobacco fields of Virginia. All these different nationalities getting together, getting along. No racial divide, no social divide, working side by side with each other, sleeping in the same barracks, eating at the same tables, no problems whatsoever. For now. Anthony Johnson lived a fulfilling, full life. After his indentured servitude, he got his land, he sued Europeans, he purchased white and black slaves, and at a time when status was tied to wealth and wealth was tied to land, Anthony owned over 300 acres of land. It's apparent that race was not a discriminating tool early in the colonial times. I wonder what happened.
Lay it level with the ground, yelled Nathaniel Bacon. And they did. Jamestown was burned to the ground. After the multiracial mob slaughtered their way along a bloody path, they turned their rage on Jamestown, the political and financial seat of the colony. The rebellion was an overflow from a simmering pot of extreme abuses the working class tolerated.
The poor all came together.
The elites saw this. They understood that a unified poor class was a problem. The shareholders expressed extreme concern over Bacon's rebellion. The Virginia lawmakers replied, not to worry, and that they'll be pursuing a divide and conquer strategy.
Listen, we are too grown to let diabetes boss us around.
So, this, even though this was in the past, I'm gonna show you what's going on in the present from that time to this time. Watch this. What I'm about to do is going to shock you, and how America is trying to go back in the same direction. Is this what they're doing? And it seemed like the president is for it. He's sliding in the same direction. But this was going to be a result of America. Here's a short video.
The U.S. has always had a fairly steady population growth, but that could change by the second half of this century. The Census Bureau says by 2080, there will be 370 million people living in the U.S., but it edges downward from there, losing millions by the year 2100. The University of Illinois Chicago detailing the dystopian future of this nation, a sort of ghost town USA. In a newly released report, researchers predicting nearly half of the nation's 25,000 cities will be all but deserted and left behind. Now, those consequences even more grim, warning that any massive decline in population will bring unprecedented challenges to communities. Basic services like transit, electricity, even clean water could disappear. Let's bring in Professor Ellen Denham-Jones, Director of the Urban Design Program at Georgia Institute of Technology. Professor, first, thank you so much for being here. And what are the biggest reasons why this is predicted to happen?
You know, a lot of it is a prediction, any kind of prediction that's 70, 80 years out is pretty major. Now, the UN, in terms of global predictions of population decline, it's mostly due to women getting more education and having less children. We're in the U.S., we've been growing already mostly by immigration, not just by natural growth of our population, but it's really more what this study is saying is really focusing. It's not looking at the overall population of the country. It's just looking at the population in cities. And that's a pretty important distinction because the way the study is framed, I mean, it just looks at all cities. And we already, right now, nearly half of our cities are losing population, especially smaller towns in rural areas. So that's not exactly new, but they're also not exactly ghost towns.
Okay, well, so Professor, you're saying it's not exactly new, and we've seen kind of this drop before. So compare this, again, it's a projected drop, so we don't know for sure that it will happen, but compare the projected drop in cities' populations to what we've kind of seen in the past.
Well, I think what we've actually seen in the past was cities were losing population to the suburbs. Starting sort of post-war, we built all these highways and we made it really easy for folks to live in suburbia. And so that led to a dramatic decline in a lot of American cities. What we're still seeing now is a migration out of rural areas to jobs that are either in, most jobs are actually in the suburbs. You know, even though we think of the cities, but it's actually most of the jobs are in the suburbs. So it's important, I think, to really recognize, I mean, some of the other points that the study makes about when you have a declining population, that means you have less tax base to support all of the infrastructure. And I think that point is incredibly important. And what's also worth thinking about is the fact that cities are more compact. You have that many more people per acre, per mile of road, of pipe, of wire, of all of that infrastructure. And yet, it's in some ways the more suburban, lower density places, which is how we've been growing for most of the last 70, 80 years, are the areas where that infrastructure, it's going to be even harder to be able to maintain all of that infrastructure without more population growth.
Right, and that's such a good point because that is something that we see currently in many cities, maybe, but sometimes it's more in pockets and neighborhoods where you see that decline in the tax revenue, as you mentioned. Professor Ellen Denham-Jones.
Wow. So it's starting to happen. But, you know, a history that's trying to keep up the past. So, you know, remember what I said before, that things repeat itself over and over and over from the 1600 with that video. And later on, they brought in suppression. Everybody started out on a level, but there was a segment rose up out of the people and start dividing and putting different classes of people. And from there on to from past that time until now, it's gone downhill. So, and they think that by suppressing the people, it's going to keep doing. but it's going to cause a thing like this.
1 second.
But for the racist people that want black people out the country, you got your wish.
There is still a silent exodus taking place. Last year, a shipper told me she moved 42 families from the U.S. to Ghana for the month of June. And then this is just one shipping company. And me too, I've run into people, you know, a lot of people in Kenya who I've met from all over the world, who are from the diaspora, who have moved there and settled. And even in my comments, people are telling me, oh, I'm from so and so and I live here, you know. Dan 13 Speed said, make sure you have consistent income either through retirement plan, pension plan, a gig, an investment or business. Africa is beautiful and wonderful as long as you have money in your pocket. Surah 16:55 says, the overwhelming majority of retirees can easily afford to relocate to Africa. This is nonsense. You can live much better in Africa. You could buy a nice apartment for a fraction of what you can buy it for in America. In America, you could never afford the same kind of house that you're living in Africa. Honestly, Ghana is much more expensive than Kenya. You know what I'm saying? Even a simple Airbnb in Ghana is going to cost you a lot more than it costs you in Kenya. The move to Africa should always be a spiritual thing first. I'm saying, guys, a lot of the problems that we run into Africa is self-inflicted problems because we try to take shortcuts. Guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Drew Williams, and if you know anything about me, you would have known that I spent 3 months in Nairobi, Kenya. Now guys, in this video, we're talking about moving back to Africa, how a lot of people are living like dogs in the West, literally sometimes. Is it going to be worse living in Africa? I don't think so. You know, and I'm going to read some of the comments from some of my, subscribers and viewers, and I'm going to tell you some of their point of views so you can, judge for yourself. And just keep it respectful, guys. We're not trying to disrespect nobody. When I say people are moving to Africa, I don't only mean Americans alone. I mean Americans, Jamaicans, Canadians, British. I'm saying it's people from all over the diaspora, okay? So if you come to this channel, guys, keep it respectful, we don't want any beef, we just want, people giving their good input and see how we can.
Oh, shit.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I just passed my CDL exam. On the first try.
While U.S. policies continue to put pressure on African nations, a growing number of African Americans are making a bold move in the opposite direction. They're walking away from the so-called American dream, not out of defeat, but by choice. Instead of chasing success in a system that often sidelines them, they're heading back to Africa, seeking something deeper, connection, heritage, and identity. For generations, Africans and African Americans have shared the same bloodline, but lived worlds apart. Two continents, one shared history, in a widening emotional and cultural gap. But that's starting to shift. What's unfolding now is something few saw coming. Thousands of African Americans are not just visiting Africa, they're relocating, starting fresh, and planting permanent roots. Why? Why trade the skyscrapers of New York for the red earth of Ghana? Why leave behind the U.S. with all its wealth and opportunities for a continent the West so often paints as poor, unstable, and broken? And why now? Especially when so many Africans are risking it all to migrate in the opposite direction. This isn't just a passing trend. It's a powerful, growing movement. And the reasons behind it might surprise you. To understand what's driving this shift, you have to go back, way back. In 2019, the world marked a painful milestone. 400 years since the first African slaves were taken from their homeland, torn from their families, and forced across the Atlantic. That dark period, the transatlantic slave trade, remains the largest forced migration of any race in human history. Roughly 12.5 million Africans were captured and sold. Only 10.7 million survived the brutal voyage. But survival didn't mean freedom. On arrival in the Americas and Europe, they were forced into back-breaking labor on plantations, growing crops like sugar, tobacco, and cotton. Their bodies were exploited, their lives devalued, all while building the economic foundations of the West. Eventually, slavery was abolished. Citizenship came, rights followed, and African descendants were promised a place in society. But racism, that never left. It just evolved. From segregation to discrimination, many black Americans still face systemic inequality every day. This painful legacy is fueling something remarkable. A return, a reversal no one predicted. More and more African Americans are packing up their lives in the U.S. and heading to Africa. But why now? Despite legal progress, the racial divide in America remains wide. In too many spaces, black Americans are still treated as less valued, less safe, less welcome. And for a long time, returning to Africa wasn't even considered. The West had spent decades pushing a narrative of Africa as a place to escape, not embrace. Then came 2019, and everything changed. That year, Ghana, once one of the main departure points for enslaved Africans, launched the Year of Return. It was more than a tourism campaign. It was a global call to come home, to reconnect, to heal, and the response was overwhelming. Thousands of African Americans jumped at the chance. Many didn't just visit, they stayed. Then came 2020. The world watched as George Floyd's death ignited the Black Lives Matter movement across America. Police violence, protests, and raw pain erupted nationwide. For many, it was the last straw. Suddenly, the so-called land of the free felt like anything but. And the movement to return to Africa didn't just continue, it exploded. Today, more than 5,000 African Americans have relocated to Ghana. Many more are preparing to leave. Just last year, Ghana granted citizenship to 524 African Americans, and the number keeps rising. Ghana isn't the only African country opening its arms wide. Across the continent, more nations are laying out the welcome mat for their brothers and sisters in the diaspora. But it begs the question, why now? Why are so many African Americans choosing Africa at this moment in history? And what does this mean for the future of the continent and the future of black identity? Meet Sanjia Davis. On paper, she had it all. She was the image of success in Washington, D.C., a respected therapist, highly educated, well-connected, living the kind of life people dream about. But beneath the polished surface, Sanjia was quietly struggling with a constant creeping fear. She recalls, "I was living what people consider the American dream. I had a career, a social life, everything looked perfect, but I never felt safe." Every time she stepped outside, anxiety followed her like a shadow. Her first thought, what if I get pulled over? Will I survive it? For Sanjia, safety wasn't a reality. It was a mask. She calls it generational trauma. Centuries of pain passed down like an inheritance from the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade, the devastation of the Tulsa race massacre, which displaced members of her own family, to the everyday racism she faced in the present. Then came the breaking point. In 2020, the murder of George Floyd sent shockwaves around the world. Protests erupted, demanding justice and change. But for Sanjia, it was personal. She felt something inside her crack. "I was barely holding on," she says. "I could feel myself spiraling toward a breakdown. That's when I knew I had to leave." So she did the unthinkable. She packed up her life in America and boarded a plane to Africa. But this wasn't an escape. It was a return. The seed had been planted a year earlier, in 2019, when she visited Ghana during the Year of Return. That experience stirred something deep in her. So when the time came, she didn't look back. She gave up the fast-paced life of Washington, D.C. for something far more precious, peace of mind. Today, Sanjia still runs her therapy practice, now online. Sure, she misses some of the conveniences of American life, but only occasionally. What she gained in return is priceless. "I feel loved. I feel supported. I feel like I matter," she says with a quiet smile. "Here, I'm not judged by my skin color. I'm just me." And she's far from alone. According to Erica Bennett, head of the African Diaspora Forum, the surge in interest after George Floyd's death was staggering. She says it was nonstop. We were getting 300 inquiries every single day, all asking the same thing. How can I move to Ghana? For thousands of African Americans, Ghana isn't just a country, it's a second chance. A place to build a life where they're seen, heard.
So I opened my bedside drawer the other night and I just...
Let me stop right here and say this. So, why did this happen? Why is this happening, going on? And things are going. You know, you might have some black people that might disagree with some black people moving overseas. Well, look at it this way: when you feel like you've been treated like a subhuman being, feel like you have to be answered just to be in assistance when you go into a store and be accused of something that you didn't do because some other individual choose to do something, but they don't look at the individual as that individual. They look at the individual by the skin. That's one thing. And then it moves into law enforcement. Law enforcement got to, you know, the history of law enforcement, that they don't know how to ration out and pull you over in some parts of the country, and it's in some parts of the state, wherever you live at, and treat you like a human being when you have a problem, or they're making a problem and necessary when you trying to be a productive person, trying to ask questions, and they talking to you down like what are you questioning me for? And you being dehumanized as an individual. Another reason why people are leaving want to go, I mean, just imagine you come across people that can't adjust their reality, that there's somebody is different than them, made the shade different, come from some differences, but they can't do something. They have to be, for them black people got to be doing something. So you have someone to act like a Karen or a Ken, trying to see what you into. You don't, you know, feel like, and then it's almost like you have some people think that black people should answer to them like it's talking like they're their children. And this come from the history of the video. And this is passed down and not even know it. They do it onto you on your job. They do it onto you wherever you, well, probably your school, wherever you're at. So that's why black people are leave. Well, some black people want to leave, and it's a generational thing that help a time. So you can't even breathe. You can't even be yourself in your own sound mind, trying to adjust. And then it's almost like, well, that's just the way it is. As long as you're in America, it's just the way it is. But maybe outside this world, not everybody see it the same. You're not judged about maybe your nationality or what part of the world you come from. But simply, some places not because of the color of your skin. But America has ingrained that so much into us, because that's all we know. We're one of the countries that, simply because of the color of skin. I'm not saying that there's no racism in other places, because clearly that it is. We see other countries that they just about as worse or about pretty close to America. But why would you want to stay why would you not? And the retribution and reparation, they don't want to pay it. They want to cover up the past. They don't want to heal the old wounds. They try to say, just take. If I shoot you, don't cry about it. Just go, keep your voice, keep your cries down. This is what has happened. Because when you devalue another human being, or what God made that human being to be like other human beings on the planet. But we've been so conditioned in this country that there's some people, they'll say that, but deep down in their bloodline, they project it. And you can tell that we got to take over because we don't think they have, and they have put caste systems in America. They compared the race theory about the different races of men according to their intelligence and according to the size of their brain and their body. And there are people still believing this in the westernized society like America. So now it perpetuates down to generations of people. and they want to cover that up. Then you look at what's going on. See, they projected this. They did this. Now it's like, okay, now what if we take the half of those descendants that were slaves that have natural gifts in them, and they can take their ability and uplift another continent, since you don't want to take credit because you don't want the spotlight. They think that every division of diversity we need to control, because we show too much control of these people, they make it seem like they're superior over white people. And there's some white people that think like this. That even though talent is given to all, but they had to shut down the history. And I'm going to show you in the next video that this is proof that there's some things that they don't want people to know. Because like they worry about what their kids is going to think. That's why all this stuff was scrubbed out of schools. I mean, they used the LGBTQ communities, boy want to be a boy, girl want to be a girl. They put that along right with it. But it was a gender behind that. But this is what they do, ladies and gentlemen. So why would any black person? But we subjected. So the first group of people they attack is the descendants of slaves or the blacks. Then they go down the line, and who's doing that work down in 1600? The migrants. They're doing what the indigenous servants do, because these children of the overseers of the property, from the time their ancestors that took it, they don't want to get out there in the sun and do that work themselves. They're not gonna get out there and pick the cotton and pick the fruit, because it would solve that. Because you imagine a bunch of pale skinned people out there picking fruit in 100-degree sun, they can't take it. But so they will let their crops, and it's till this day they're letting their crops go down because of it. Oh, you think there's a bunch of pale skinned people gonna do that? But this is what they thought, because it goes back to what population is going to get the most, and if we get the most, we're going to be less the most. So this is how this prejudice, this racism was pushed. So they hurting themselves. So now in modern day, and when I showed the video from the past, because it started back that 3, 4, 5 centuries ago, imagine a 400 or 500 year period this over time, and it don't want to leave. It's just it go from generation after generation. That's why it can't leave. They don't want. Then it's the descendants that keep it from generation after generation. Let's keep it up, because if we don't keep it up, well, how do we do? We're gonna manipulate and do it in different tactics, so they don't have the mental understanding that we manipulating them. But it's nothing new under the sun. So guess what? Now that this happened, the economy's falling. That people that look like them. Why is that these towns are turning to ghost towns? Not just in the cities, but in rural towns. Why is that? Why? Go look at some traveling YouTube channels and can show you all the ghost towns. Somewhere there was sundown towns, like Cairo, Illinois, and other places. In America, they were sundown towns. They didn't want to share the quality American dream because of insecurity and jealousy of other people. So when the black people build up towns, they burned them down. When they try to get production, they play political things with them because they didn't want to compete. So their insecurity trying to put supremacy and superiority over on people in the government, in the legislation, and how the way done. This is what they done. White men who done this, and they said, with the blacks get this, or you got these other people, then we're going to be marginalized out the system. But every time they think they're going to be blessed by the Most High and blessed in the way by doing without us. Now it's collapsing. And they got the president on board to do it, President Trump to do it. Now it's collapsing. Now the industry's collapsing. Now we all got to pay for it. Now we're paying for it in the grocery stores. It's going to be paying for it in jobs. We're paying for another inflation. White supremacy did this. White nationalism is at top. The Project 2025 is doing this. That's why it is. Because it don't want to really be diverse. It's going back to a Nazi Eurocentral way of looking. Just look at it, study. It looks like they clean it up. It looks like what they're doing to getting the criminals. That's true. And if someone break the law in the country, that's true. Whether they be an illegal truck driver or whatever, that's true. They have to abide by the rules. But look at the deeper meaning of what they're doing. They knew that this population was rising, and there were people that were scared that the language only going to change, but the demographic of the skin tone going to change, and the language going to change, and they had to maintain that Eurocentric mindset in America, like they have doing over, and he copied off of Europe. That's what they're doing over in Europe right now, Germany, France, whatever, getting all the other people, some of the people out the way, because they're going to lose their heritage, their culture. This is what this comes down to. So, and even though we're part of the culture, Black Americans, can show you the video, been fighting but long, but they still subjugate us. Even though they don't get too hot, don't get too proud, boy. Imagine that you come back to a country and they treat you like that. But some of them had decided to say, okay, enough's enough, and it's coming. And now they're gonna come back and watch the very people that drove these black people for centuries and centuries. Watch what's going to happen to their towns. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And I feel sorry for the black people that got to live in that town. I hope one day they can get out somehow. But it's time for them. It's going to fall on them because the ancestral thing that they done. Oh, we didn't do all that, but you're still doing the injustices that most people cover up until someone speak up on it and bring it to social media. It's not like it used to do back in the day when before social media. They've been hundreds of people probably been who would follow law, being a black man, black woman, doing what they're supposed to do in town. They probably got injustice. Some are probably under a graveyard somewhere, not because of drugs or anything, because of it's a demonic ancestral hatred that they got caught up at night. There are people that still carry that demonic hatred from the Klan till this day, and they will cover up for the Klan. National skinhead, and it shows the world. Hit national TV is going down that America's okay with it because they don't want people that look like this to pay the price. That's just Johnny just expressing out their moods. See what's costing. They done this. They do this what this administration doing right now, from the high level to the low level, and they convince the people at the low level that look like them that this is what you're going to do. See what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And people are in agreement with it. Now they're paying the price in different parts of this country, not just in the city, but in the rural areas. But hey, you got what you wish. You got what you've been saying for. You bitch and complain. You bitch and complain. You accomplished. You suppressed all the people that you've done. You did everything. Took away DI, all for equal opportunity, inclusion. Stripped away from the descendants of slaves. We're going to have it our way. Now you're paying the price. Now your plantations burning down. Now your sundown towns are being destroyed. How you like them apples? That's why I said black people, let the Most High do it His way, because He's tearing the kingdom down. That's what He's doing. That's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing on these social media, these plantations. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this. We used to have the Lily Bell, what the Liberty or whatever. It's coming down. Descendants of slaves is on it, and they would have picnics and have lynchings on unaliving people on a tree. Now the system of justice has come and visit their generation. This is why they got it, and they don't think that they can pay. Now their daughters and sons, now they're grieving because of that, because of the earth. That see how stuff come back on them and say, don't say that's being mean. That's just being cruel. No, son. That's the way the system is. You do injustice to people, and just the injustice come back to your household. Think about it. Take care, be blessed. See you on the next video, guys. Like, share, subscribe.